the shop today. As you can tell, it's it's getting cold out again, but I don't have anything big going on today. It's gonna be kind of an easy weekend. I know in the one of the previous videos where I built the fuel cell for the swing arm, I had talked about I wanted to get it, cleaned up, finished up, everything mocked up, and then sent off to anodizing. After doing some research and some thinking, I'm kind of going to go away from that. I'm not going to get it anodized. Not because I don't think it would help or it's not a good idea. Just every nickel kind of counts right now. And I don't know that I personally just need to have it anodized. I talked to some people that have been running M1 fuel a lot longer than I have, and have gone a lot faster than me, honestly. And I just kind of picked their brain a little bit. And the whole thing with the M1 and corrosion with bare aluminum was just something I had kind of heard, through the grapevine and just kind of being around people. And I wasn't sure. Nobody could tell me like how bad is it. Is it gonna just rot a hole in this thing like in a week, or something I don't need to really worry about? And the consensus is don't worry about it. It's just it would be nice, and it does. There's a little corrosion factor that goes on, but apparently it's not as bad as I was originally led to believe. So I'm going to go ahead and not spend the money to have that fuel cell anodized, which is fine with me because I can't anodize things. So when damage happens or things get nicked and chipped and stuff, I can't correct that. However, I've had real good luck with keeping things touched up and looking good on things that I can do. So I did some other research on different kinds of enamels or paints or anything that kind of hold up to methanol and just fuel, oils, all that stuff in general. And I kind of thought back to some of the previous projects I've done on other stuff and things I've had good luck with. So I decided on this fuel cell, instead of anodizing it, it's going to keep it simple. And I went with the VHT Wrinkle Plus. Not only does it camouflage my less than perfect TIG welds, it actually looks pretty cool, and it's been very durable on other things I've used it on. So this could be a little bit of a test and a trial and error for all of us to go through to see if I go to fill this fuel cell up and I dribble methanol all over it, if it just eats the coating right off of it, then we know I'll need to do something else. But the bottom line is that if this doesn't work, I don't have a problem doing it again and sending it out for anodize if that's what really needs to be done. But I'm a budget guy. Every dollar counts right now. I went ahead and made this fuel cell that would have probably cost me whatever, $1,200 to buy. I made it for the price of basically scrap metal at work, or scrap cut off aluminum at work. $20 filler neck, some $6 bungs, and the brand new pump and stuff that I bought secondhand, new, from a friend of mine. So I saved some money there too. So I'm a budget guy. So I think I'll be fine. And like I said, if I got to touch it up or whatever, but the ultimate goal with the M1 is basically I'm only going to be running it at the track. And if I need to do any kind of tune adjustments at the shop, but for the most part, I'm going to have two tunes. It'll be raced on M1, and then I'll store the bike, or it'll sit in the shop at least ready to run on just regular race gas. So the thing won't be sitting with M1 in it. So I think I'll be gaining some headway in that sense too, as far as this whole corrosion issue. Nobody can really say how bad or how fast that is, but I don't think it's anything I need to worry about, honestly. So what I didn't show you guys is I did actually pressure test this cell. Got a little regulator and a fitting I put into the breather, the threaded vents, and I plugged everything back off, put 10 pounds of pressure in it, and then did the soap test. I do a lot of hydraulic tanks at work, and we got to patch and repair stuff. So that's how we test them at work. So I figured if, these tanks hold anywhere from 50 to 150 gallons of fuel or hydraulic oil, that my 1 gallon fuel cell, if it don't leak at 10 pounds, it'll be fine. So anyways, I did manage to get this thing painted last night with my Wrinkle Plus, and I put it in the oven this morning and actually baked it. Cook. That's where I've had the best results with this stuff. You can paint anything you want with it, but I should put it in the oven. They say like 200 degrees for an hour. I did 200 degrees for a half hour because the house started to stink, and that doesn't go over real well. So it you actually, I got it sitting right here, but it actually, you can feel the difference in how well that coating set up compared to when you just leave it just raw sprayed. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. But now, plan is I'm going to get it put in the bike for good and get my regulator and everything all mounted, put the pump in, or get the O-rings on that all set. And then I'm still waiting on, I ordered some M1 friendly or methanol friendly fuel lines and fittings. And then once that gets here, I can plumb those lines. And I got to save up for injectors. I do have some fuel system parts for sale if anybody's looking for some stuff. At the end of this, I'll drop some pictures and description of what I'm selling. But it's basically the stuff that I had on the bike when I was running just straight race gas. And stuff's all real good shape yet. So if you're looking for any upgrades, stay tuned for that. I'll show you guys what I got. But for now, let's put the fuel cell in and I'll show you what's all going on with that. So if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, whatever, you may have saw I put up a post where I had it, the fuel cell was in the arm, mocked up. It was still raw aluminum, but I was excited that it just went right in, because that was the first time the actual cell itself, not the cardboard mock-up, had been put in the bike. And I based it off of measurements I took on the bike. And the trick is to get it installed where I could slide it in and drop it down, and it would miss the swing arm and not hit up here where everything else is mounted. I didn't want to have to take a bunch of stuff off the bike to be able to get the cell in. So watch how tight this is when it slides in here. I don't know if it'll get the full effect, but this is why I was so thrilled about it, because my raw, rough measurements, and it worked. Basically, it slides in so far. Gotta rotate it, tip it to miss that fitting. Rotate it back the other way. Tip her forward, rotate it to miss the air fitting. Drop it straight down. Just like that. And that's the kind of stuff that makes me happy. Bam, Bob's your uncle. Good deal. Okay, now I'm gonna get all this bolted down. I took the chain slider guide here. Actually sits in here. It goes on top of the flange for the fuel cell right here. But what I did is I took, and it's not real thick to start with, but I took and I just kind of feathered down the thickness a little bit here so that it's not sticking up as high sitting on top of this. It's only an 1/8 inch thick plate, but I got maybe a 1/16 of an inch back on that. So this way, this isn't sitting up super high and interfering and looking all awkward and bending funny. So that worked out pretty slick. And now we'll go ahead and mount everything else up that I can do until I get the fuel lines. Other thing I did that I didn't really show you was on top of the swing arm itself, I actually put some black vinyl electrical tape down on there so the aluminum isn't sitting right on the powder coat on the arm. So it's not a super duper barrier, but it'll keep from kind of rattling and chafing up the powder coat on the arm a little bit. Just a little bit of protection. If it's not perfect, it's not perfect. Nothing I can do about it. For now, we'll get this stuff put in. Just a little dab of red lock on here. And if you're wondering, yes, this hardware is titanium. Thanks for asking. There we go. Oops, a little extra. Wow, now don't fight with me. Get the other side buttoned up. Come on now. Got ahead of myself and shouldn't take these down yet. I had to shimmy the fuel cell around just a touch yet. Get the other hole lined up. Now we're set. First thing I'm going to do is drop the pump in here. It actually has a little sock, slips on the end of the O-ring. I had to set this depth, that's why you notice the pump is sitting a little higher than the rest of the cell. The cell itself wasn't deep enough. It would start to get a little too low, so I raised the mounting ring up for the pump. So this can all kind of go in, hopefully. Oh man, I put that right in the way again. I got a little ahead of myself. There. Okay, so what you didn't just see me do was drop the pump in, and as I was getting it close to the bottom, I knocked the sock off the bottom of the pump, so I had to take this all back out, put it back together. So skip that part for you. But there's a two O-rings on the pump. It slides down, sits into the little machine's like surface area, and then there's a snap ring that holds the pump in, so I can actually still rotate the pump a little bit to get the angle I need. And because I got a little hose here that happens to have the size fitting I'm going to use, I can mock it up roughly to see where it's going to sit. And it's actually going to be right about there. Make sure that line runs about sideways to the frame. So that's it. So I'll leave the pump clocked that position there. You can go ahead and put the fill cap on. That's got an O-ring inside of it. Plug the pump in. And this will all get tied up nice and tidy yet. And this pump, what I didn't explain before, is this pump has a speed control on it. So right now I have it wired to run basically like full hog the whole time. There's another terminal on here that I could do like a PWM, or if I just ground that terminal, it'll run the pump in slow speed. So if this was going on like a street vehicle, you don't want it cranking full tilt the whole time. It would actually just kind of wear the pump out. So what I'm probably going to do is run it full tilt, because the bike really only is going to make passes and then come down the return road. They don't recommend running it basically like the bike at idle or like a street vehicle. You don't want to be cruising basically with the pump at full tilt for more than 15 minutes, or you can kind of wear them out a little quick. But if need be, if I start doing a little more, more idle time, more riding, whatever, not likely, I could actually do like a boost output, something so that this terminal saw ground, and the whole time the bike's just idling, running around, low boost. The pump would be running low speed. As soon as I saw, like, say, 10 pounds, I could have it basically take that ground away, turn the pump on to high speed. So there's some pretty cool features with this pump. I truly believe I'm just going to leave it the way it is. 2 wires, positive, negative, and run it full tilt because it's only going to be making passes. So we'll go ahead and get the regulator mounted and then put the breather and rollover vent check valve in. So I plumb in the regulator right to the fuel cell itself. I'm only going to have 2 fuel lines on the bike now. So basically it'll come out of the pump, it'll go right up to the fuel rail, then out of the fuel rail it'll come back to the regulator, and the regulator will return back to the tank. Whereas before with the the hinged fuel tank, I had to go from the fuel tank to the pump, out of the pump to the filter to the rail, out of the rail to the regulator, then from the regulator to the pump or to the tank. So there was like 4 extra lines in that system. So the whole system just got easier, and I actually upgraded to the size fuel line I'm going to use now. I was using -6, 6AN line, and now I'm going to be using -8. So a little more fuel delivery available. This hose here, so while I'm flipping around, this is for my boost reference to the regulator. The reason it's long right now is because it's on a hose barb and it doesn't want to come off real good. So I just undo it at the quick couple that is up by the throttle bodies. So now I'll just plumb that, not plumb it, but I'll route it back up into here and reconnect that. It was just easier than fighting with that hose barb. The thing is, got some pretty sharp barbs on it, so that hose is definitely not going anywhere. So regulator's mounted, and now we will just mount the vent and check valve. So if you hear that in there, there's a check ball in there. So this will be able to vent out freely, and if it flips over, you can't, nothing will pour out of there. That check valve blocks that. So it's free vent, check valve. Yeah, I know it's a blue filter. I had one laying around, so that's what I'm going to use. That'll work. So last thing I got to hook up that I almost forgot about is the line that runs up to my boost controller. Put that back on there. it's another thing I'm doing a little bit different. And last couple times out at the track, I've been doing it. So instead of running, there used to be, remember, there was a carbon fiber bottle in here I had filled with CO2 for boost control. And then the air tank for the air shifters right here in the swing arm. Well, I had been asking around and nobody was really sure. And then I asked the right people and I got the answer I wanted. I basically now run the boost control off of the one air tank in the swing arm. Maybe other people have been doing this for a while and I'm just late to the party. Well, whatever. I decided to ditch that bottle and run boost control and air shifter off the tank in the arm. And after the last 4 trips to the track, I've had 0 issues with shifting or pressure drops or anything weird going on. In fact, after a full pass of making shifts and boost control, I started 150 psi in the tank. There'll still be about 125 left when I get back from a run. So the boost control actually does not use a ton of pressure, and it's not a constant flow. It's usually a little bit of a balance of just kind of pulsing. And then the shifter is just kind of high pressure spurts. It's not a lot of volume. So I'm thinking that might be the new hot ticket. So it's one less thing on the bike as far as another bottle to carry around or whatever. But thought I would just kind of explain that out as why there's no more CO2 bottle in here like I had in the past. So now I will take care of a couple quick little things and I can put chain back on. So there's the installed finished product, more or less like 80% sort of okay. So these here, I will need my fuel lines that should be coming yet. This will be the return side, boom, boom. And then over here, this is the feed side. This will run kind of along with this hose here. It'll come over and I'll tie them under so I can still reach in to the fill cap. And it'll kind of swoop up and then both fuel lines will run through here. And then they'll go in here to the fuel rail. As you can see, my fuel rail, which is sitting on the ground over there, or on the lift. You can see my injectors and stuff are gone because I'm waiting for that stuff yet. The injectors I want to get are about $1,200, $1,300. So that's why I'm trying to sell some of the old fuel system stuff off of this. But in time, I hope to have the injectors and get it running before the snow flies. For no other reason than it's just a goal to say that, I did everything I did this year and then still managed to build that and do this whole fuel system switch over and get it all running in relatively short order. Look at all the room for activities in there now. There's just nothing going on. I dig it. And then you can see there's where the old fuel lines used to come out right here, suction and return. And I was going to probably do a tank shell, but honestly, because I got so much money tied up in paint in this thing, that by the time I sell this and buy another shell and get it painted, I'm going to be upside down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all this out and turn this tank into a shell. I know I had talked about selling it, but kind of changing plans here because by selling it, I'm basically making myself spend more money, and that's not what I'm about right now. So I'm going to go ahead and make this just into a shell. It'll have gas caps still, so it'll still look like a tank at least. But oh, look how sparkly that paint is. Yeah, it cost a little bit. But yeah, so that's the plan. I'll have to remake, because the tank still uses a stock style hinge. So once I got this gutted, and it's just a shell, that mount where the hinge goes will go away. And then what I'll do is I'll make a Zeus mount back here so that I'll sit on a support there, and then it slips down on these pins up here. So that's the plan for the tank anyways. I'll show you the fuel system parts I'm trying to unload now. So one thing real quick, in one of the last videos where I had was cutting all these pieces out, somebody caught how I did the notch for where it goes around the fittings and the swing arm there, and saw what I did and thought it'd be kind of cool to explain it. I do this stuff like all day, every day, so sometimes I rush through things that I don't realize might be something new to somebody else or kind of a shortcut. But what I did was, he saw me laying out, I got a unibit here. He saw me take the unibit and lay it this way, and then lay it that way. and kind of find a center line of what I wanted to mark, that radius in there is just, I just wanted, you know, a 1/2 inch radius or a 1 inch diameter. Well, the unibit is a 1 inch unibit. So all I did was plunk a hole in there, and then with the cutoff wheel, I cut straight that way and straight that way. And it left me with the basically a 1/2 inch radius. So it was just a real quick, instead of having to, like, you know, die grind all that into shape or drill a bunch of holes and break it out and file it or whatever. I'm a manual labor kind of guy, but that was a lot of work. So it was as simple as drilling a hole and connecting the ends. So just real quick, I thought I'd point out because he thought it was kind of cool, and, you know, not everybody knows this stuff. So hope that maybe helps somebody in the future if they're doing something quick. So here's what I got. I got the AEM pump. This stuff was all on the bike for all this past season and part of the previous season. I didn't get the bike running the previous season until halfway through the year. So we'll call it, I'm going to go ahead and say it's a 1 season on this stuff, because this year with the virus stuff all going on, we didn't race as much as we thought. And I only had half of a year on it prior to that. So you can see how that math kind of averages out. But here's the AEM pump I was using. 400 liter per hour at 40 PSI. So it's one of their bigger pumps. But the pump, the bracket, and the fuel filter, it's a Cetrob USA filter. These are all 6AN fittings too, by the way, the fittings will go with. But the pump, filter, and bracket I'm selling together. Then I got a Red Horse Racing 1-to-1 regulator, return style regulator. You can see I had AN fitting on here for my pressure gauge. And then boost reference port. Nice deal. I was hoping to get like $75 for that. And then the pump and bracket and filter, like I said, if I got like whatever $200 for the stuff, I'd take that. And then these are Injector Dynamics. They're ID 1050X. They're part number 3414s. Actually, it's 341414, and all that is the actual physical measurements. It's a 14 millimeter O-ring on each end, so 1414. And then I measured these out 38 millimeters on center line, but they actually measured 34 millimeter from bottom of the O-ring to bottom of the O-ring. So the actual inside diameters of the O-ring lands are 34 millimeter. The overall center to center is 38 millimeter. So if you got something that's close to that, as long as it's got 14 millimeter bores, they'll work. These came out of the throttle bodies I use, which right here, they're 0506 throttle bodies, and they bolt right in for the lowers. As you can see, I don't run an upper, so I only run 4 injectors, and those injectors were enough fuel for plenty of power and plenty of boost. So if you are running a 0506 1000, you want to upgrade your main injectors, but you're still running uppers, you could use the uppers as just like a supplementary fuel for a dry kit, run the bike off of the main lowers, whatever. But that's what they fit if anybody's interested. They're like 520 or $30 new. I was going to hopefully try to get 400 for them. So if you can use them, shoot me a message. These are the connectors that they take. You can get pigtails just about anywhere if you needed to switch over. But I love these injectors, and they're super freaking nice. They're a serviceable one too. They got a replaceable inlet screen you can change out or send back and have done, I should say. I'm not an injector specialist, but they are Injector Dynamics, real deals. They're not knockoffs. I'll show you the logo here. You can barely read that with the glare. Yeah, you can just kind of sort of see that, Injector Dynamics. So anyways, like I said, the only reason I'm selling them is I'm upgrading to bigger. Otherwise, these things would stay, or I'd keep them for another project or something. But I'm going to upgrade to 2600s. Still going to run Injector Dynamics because these guys were super good to me when I needed help sourcing injectors. And I'm going to stick with them. So if you can use any of this stuff, let me know. So one thing real quick, or another thing real quick, I guess. I've been getting a lot of questions on the fuel tech on this bike, and a lot of people seem to be really digging it, but they seem to be intimidated by the wiring or just like the technology behind it. And before I did this on this bike, I had never done this before. This was a huge step for me. Never wired up anything like this, of this, this technology or this kind of advanced stuff. And I was getting questions about the wiring on the bike. And that seems to be the biggest intimidating factor, is the overall just wiring in a Standalone. This was my first time doing that, and I thought it out, and it's not like a SEMA quality type of show or type of wiring job, but I thought it out enough to make everything 100% serviceable without completely stripping the bike or having to strip a loom. So if any of you out there are interested in the fuel tech type stuff or just Standalone stuff and are interested in the wiring and what kind of how this bike is like wired up, let me know, and I'll do like a video on that and kind of break it down how I thought it out as like through a newbie person's eyes. So maybe that would clear up some stuff and make people not be so afraid or timid to just jump in and start doing it. So if you want to see something like that, let me know, and I'll do a little video and I'll break the bike down. I'll basically strip it, and I'll show you all the wiring and how simple it is or how crude it is, depending on how fancy you get. But like I said, this was my first time doing this, and I've had 0 wiring failures. I followed a lot of guidelines, and I just laid it out logically to where everything is serviceable. So let me know, and I'll do something like that.